Ngiyabonga. Ngosisikeleli. Indiplofanos.
The House Chairperson.
Good afternoon, honorable members. Let's observe a moment for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 10, Electricity and Energy Appropriation Bill.
Thank you. I recognize the Honorable the Minister of Electricity and Energy.
Honorable House Chair, fellow ministers, deputy ministers, the Deputy Minister of Electricity and Energy, Honorable Samantha Graham Murray, leaders of the opposition, chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee on Electricity and Energy, distinguished guests, partners, people of the Republic of South Africa. In his seminal critique on global inequality, how Europe underdeveloped Africa, the African intellectual and freedom fighter Walter Rodney wrote, open quote, "Development is a process of self-reliance, of drawing upon the resources of the people and mobilizing them for their own benefit," close quotes. For millions of South Africans, the promise of democracy remains incomplete when homes are without power, hospitals face blackouts, and businesses operate under the shadow of uncertainty. Energy is not simply a technical input. It is about human dignity. It's about enabling children to study at night, clinics to preserve vaccines, and factories to power the jobs we so urgently need. It is within this context that the Department of Electricity and Energy was established, not as a bureaucratic reshuffle, but as a strategic intervention to restore public confidence, drive delivery, and reassert the role of the democratic state as a developmental force. This budget vote marks a turning point. It is not merely about expenditure, it is about direction. It is about renewal. And most of all, it is about delivery. At the time of our formation, the country was experiencing the most severe energy crisis in its democratic history. Load shedding had become a daily feature of life. Growth was stalling, investor confidence was weakening, and the reliability of the state itself was under question. Yet, even under these conditions, we resisted despair. Guided by the Energy Action Plan, supported by ESCOM, the private sector, and social partners. Strengthened by the formation of the National Energy Crisis Committee, the country rallied. Structural load shedding has effectively been eradicated, and occurrences of load shedding are now sparsely intermittent. In the year ending April 2025, annualized EAF breached 60% mark. ESCOM is now gearing to improve EAF to above 70% by the year end. It is this progress that we seek to consolidate in the 2025-26 financial year. However, this budget vote is not just about resolving a crisis. It is about reshaping the future. Our long-term task is not only to stabilize the system, but to reform its structure. We must build an electricity sector that is affordable, democratic, and rooted in the needs of our people. That means expanding access, lowering prices over time, and using energy infrastructure to drive industrialization, job creation, and economic inclusion. This is not an abstract policy ambition. It is the very foundation of a developmental state. Energy is not a commodity to be traded without consequence. It is a public good. It is a platform for dignity, for education, for health, for enterprise, and for full economic citizenship. As we present this budget vote, we do so with clarity about our mission and humility about the scale of the work ahead. Our program is organized around 5 strategic priorities, as set out in the department's 2025 to 2030 strategic plan, namely to achieve universal access, availability, affordable and quality energy, attain sovereign and regional energy security, drive industrialization and lead innovation, qualitatively transform energy demographics, and lastly, to assert South Africa's continental and global energy leadership. This budget is therefore both a statement of intent and a plan for delivery. We will therefore, in presenting this inaugural budget, outline progress we have made, the intervention plan for the year ahead, and how we intend to work with partners across the state, private sector, and communities to achieve our shared goals. Honorable members, since 1994, South Africa has made extraordinary progress in redressing energy poverty through one of the most extensive electrification programs in the global south. Over 8.4 million new household connections have been delivered, expanding electricity access from just over 36% in 1994 to more than 94% by 2024. This achievement reflects the state's commitment to universalizing access as a core component of post-apartheid reconstruction and development. However, the momentum of recent years has slowed. Unelectrified households, particularly in informal settlements, peri-urban areas, deep rural areas, and newly formed housing development, now accounts for 1.6 million houses, demanding a renewed and accelerated national effort. The department has therefore undertaken a review of the current electrification program approach and initiated a comprehensive universal access strategy. This intervention aims to expand beyond its historic grid-centric model and adopt a coordinated, technology-neutral framework that accelerates access delivery, integrates grid and non-grid solutions, and institutionalizes implementation partnerships across all 3 spheres of government. The revised strategy is structured around 3 critical reforms, namely, 1, the reconfiguration of the delivery model to consolidate all access programs under one hybrid planning and funding framework, including the review of the current INEP grant towards a universal access grant. Secondly, to achieve infrastructure modernization with targeted investment in overloaded or undercapacitated networks to accommodate new connections and load growth. And lastly, to achieve innovation and off-grid integration, scaling microgrids and decentralized energy and smart grid systems for deep rural, peri-urban, and informal settlements. The universal access strategy reframes electrification as a developmental and rights-based obligations rather than a legacy infrastructure backlog. Over the medium-term expenditure framework, the government has committed just over 13 billion of the integrated national electrification program. This allocation is more than a funding line. It is a baseline commitment to end energy poverty and a platform to reconfigure how we deliver on the promise of universal access by 2030. The scale of the financial requirements to achieve universal access by 2030 exceeds what the fiscus alone can carry. The department is therefore working with National Treasury and our development finance partners to design a blended financing approach. The goal to use the 13 billion rands allocation to unlock additional capital through debt markets and concessional funding windows. By using public funds to de-risk private investments, we are creating an infrastructure finance facility that will allow us to front-load the capital needed to accelerate rollout. To ensure that access is not only achieved but affordable, the department has also initiated a comprehensive review of the energy pricing policy. This review is central to addressing affordability constraints, particularly for indigenous communities that remain energy poor despite formal connections. The revised framework will propose a differentiated pricing structure that protects vulnerable households whilst also supporting large power users with internationally competitive tariffs for electricity-intensive, locally beneficiated exports. House Chair, the Independent Power Producer Office, working with the department, has now enabled over 2,500 megawatts of capacity currently under construction and a further 2,991 megawatts in advanced stages of financial close. More than 7,700 megawatts have already been connected to the grid since the inception of the IPP. In the year ahead, new rounds under the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program, the Battery Energy Storage Program, and the Gas to Power Program will be issued. These incorporate stronger localization obligations, clearer project timelines, and enhanced oversight mechanisms to ensure implementation benefits. Honorable members, South Africa is approaching what analysts have termed a gas cliff, a structural supply shortfall arising from the imminent depletion of domestic gas reserves, declining imports via the Romco pipeline from Pandit and Mani fields in Mozambique to Secunda in Mpumalanga, and delayed infrastructure investments. Without urgent intervention, the cliff will undermine industrial continuity, threaten baseload capacity, and stall progress on our energy transition. Gas is not a luxury in our context. It is a critical enabler of power system flexibility, a baseload substitute in select industrial applications, and a critical feedstock to produce fertilizer, hydrogen, and other value-added chemicals. Whilst we continue to expand renewable generation, we must also recognize that the reliable, dispatchable baseload will remain essential for a functioning power system. Recognizing this, the department has prioritized a national response that secures current supply and positions South Africa for long-term resilience in the gas market. 3 interventions will be prioritized in the 2025 financial year. First, the department will finalize the gas master plan and implementation framework. Secondly, working with the Department of Transport and Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources will fast-track the procurement and development of LNG import infrastructure. And lastly, is to secure long-term and competitively priced gas supply contracts. These contracts will underpin investor confidence in gas-to-power infrastructure and ensure that installed assets are dispatched with efficient load factors, allowing them to operate consistently and cost-effectively over their economic lifespan. Honorable members, none of our generation interventions will be successful unless they are matched by investment in transmission grid. The TDP anticipates over 14,000 kilometers of new lines to be built by 2032. In April 2025, the department published draft regulations to support the entry of private capital through the Independent Transmission Project Procurement Program. We are scheduled to issue a request for qualifications by July 2025, end of this month, followed by a request for proposals by November of this year. Honorable Chair, a resilient and responsive electricity distribution system is central to energy security, universal access, and local economic development. Yet, across much of the country, the distribution network is in a state of structural decline. Years of underinvestment, inadequate maintenance, technical and non-technical losses, and institutional fragmentation have eroded the performance of this critical tier of the electricity value chain. If we are to ensure reliable supply and enable transition to a decentralized and dynamic electricity market, we must begin by securing investments in the distribution sector, particularly at the municipal level where the majority of households and small businesses receive electricity. The department has therefore prioritized the rollout of the Distribution Agency Agreement, which established clear roles, technical standards, and accountability frameworks for municipalities to manage and maintain and expand their distribution infrastructure. These agreements are already being piloted in targeted municipalities and will be scaled up in the 2025-26 financial year. Energy investment must serve as a catalyst for reindustrialization and job creation and transformation. Public procurement, particularly in a capital-intensive sector like energy, must be deliberately structured to secure local economic value, deepen industrial capability, and expand equitable participation in supply chains. To this end, the department is working with DTIC to develop a comprehensive localization and socio-economic maximization model for the energy sector. Honorable members, South Africa stands at the threshold of a new era of nuclear energy. Across the globe, nations are reevaluating nuclear not merely as a clean baseload source, but as a strategic asset to secure energy sovereignty, stimulate innovation, and drive industrial competitiveness. To this end, we will be resetting and restarting our energy sector in relation to nuclear. Ultimately, this budget is more than numbers. It's what underpins our social contract and commitment to restore the trust by delivering electricity that is stable. Let this be the decade in which South Africa reclaims her energy future, not for profit, not for power, but for the people. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Mvana.
Inkosi ngokwayo. Inkosi. Thank you, House Chair.
Order, honorable members. Our grid is very sensitive. Maybe even sound can disturb it.
House Chair, I just want to greet all the members, honorable members, and also South Africans, stakeholders, and everybody who is listening to us, especially this month of our hero, Tata Nelson Mandela. We also want to send condolences to the family of Tata Mabuza. And then we are saying the ANC must also take the spear and move forward. We understand that Tata Mabuza has gone to join the ANC branch in the heaven. Thank you very much. The vote that I'm dealing with is vote 10. Vote 10. Vote 10 is unique in comparison to other budget votes as the Portfolio Committee of Electricity and Energy. since it is a new portfolio committee. And this committee has been created during the 7th Parliament. This is due to the fact that Ministry and Department of Electricity are newly empowered to implement electricity legislation and implement regulations. This is critical as the sector is a crucial driver of economic development and job creation. Moreover, it has made a steady recovery from the many days of load shedding. However, much more needs to be done to ensure security of supply of electricity and energy.
Honorable member, just hold on for a moment, Honorable.
Thank you.
Dagmore, why do you want to
Thank
be
you, House
recognized?
Chair. I have a point of order. We are all very aware that the rules do not allow continual discussion. Interjections are fine, but continual discussion continues from the other side, because I think they have got such a problem at the effectiveness of this minister and this department that
Yeah,
they
no,
continue
Honorable
to
Dagmore,
talk.
we
They're
don't
worried
need
that-
to understand why you believe they're doing it. Thank you. Honorable members on both sides, and Honorable Dagmore, let me point out that I think at some point when the minister spoke, you were the one who initiated the across the aisle conversation. So let me, but allow me to plead with members on both sides of the aisle to allow this member the space to debate. Honorable
you.
member, my
Thank you,
apologies, please
Chairperson.
continue.
In introducing the budget that we are in today, it is important that we acknowledge the presentation by the department of its annual performance plan, budget and programs. The department has a number of entities which report to the department, such as ESCOM, National Energy Regulator, we call it NESA. The other one, we call it NEXA. The other one is SANEDI, NAURIDI, and NR. Whatever. Thank you very much for assisting me. But it is National Nuclear Regulator and also National Radioactive Waste Disposal Institute, which also presented their annual performance plans to the committee previously. The budget and the program of the department are geared towards ensuring security of supply of the different energy carriers and in the short, in the short, medium, and also long term. For the financial 2025-2026, the department has been allocated, the minister, I think, has touched that, 6.7 billion, and it will also increase to 7.1 billion over the medium term. And then it has got, we don't take it small. It's not a small budget really, but it also needs to be utilized effectively. And it has got 5 programs of the department, as well as 7 outcomes that we know. The administration program is budgeted 220 million, which is less than 4% of the budget, which means that the bulk of the budget is geared towards programs engaged in delivery and for the entities to implement the programs and projects. Then we have also to fill the vacant post. We don't want to feel as if it is the Hollywood theater, acting throughout. Program 2, the budget of 67.1 million is geared towards energy planning and policy development. This is critical in a sector which is capital intensive with long lead times for projects with bankable business plans to become operational. However, to achieve its outcome-based approach, the department will ensure the finalization and implementation of the integrated energy plan. I think also Minister has touched that one. The integrated resource plan 2025 and the gas master plan. I heard the minister also touching on this one of the gas master plan. The plans will create the pathway and certainty towards security and supply of electricity and energy. The department will also ensure the alignment on national, provincial, and municipal energy plans, which seeks to address the current fragmented planning and policy misalignment. And then program 3, the energy program and projects, has the largest budget of 4.66 billion. And program 3 is dedicated to completing the integrated and national electrification program, which since 94 has provided electricity connection to historically disadvantaged communities to correct historical injustice of apartheid. By
Thank you,
the-
honorable member. Your time has now expired.
Otherwise, ANC supports the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Nchabeleng. Order, honorable members. Let's allow this. member-
Okay.
Honorable Nchabeleng, I think we will start your time now, even if you still engage in private conversations.
Honorable Chair, thank you so much. MKP outrightly rejects this budget. This budget is hopeless, does not address the challenges faced by our economy and the ordinary masses. Give South Africans a budget, Minister, that tackles poverty, unemployment, wealth and income inequality, and MK would have supported it. Minister, this budget fails to fix the remaining 13,000 megawatts of UCLF in power stations unit. The DEE failed to supply affordable electricity and universal electricity access. Chair, electricity is expensive in South Africa. Minister failed to explain the 219 billion budget item line in the budget. Where is the 2,500 megawatts nuclear procurement program, Dololo Minister? Where is the promised electricity grant subsidies for indigent female and children-headed household? Where is the budget for building brand new baseload power stations in South Africa? The ANC is quiet. Where is the AG has warned against the possible failure to meet your 54 output indicators audit. So today, I stand before you as a voice for the millions of South Africans who are tired of empty promises, failed policies, and a government that prioritizes stealing over building our economy. This budget is a slap in the face of every household that sits in the darkness, to every entrepreneur whose business has collapsed due to load shedding and load reduction, and to every woman who bears the brand of energy poverty and electricity blackouts. Minister, you must feel the pain at this point. We see you. Eskom's continued failure with the entity's energy availability factor projected to reach a mere 65% by 2027 instead of a 70% and above as promised is an indicator of failing. Since 2018, when Eskom was profitable, the ANC government had an opportunity to run Eskom efficiently, but instead they have allowed corruption, mismanagement, and incompetency to destroy it. The department's total expenditure is projected to increase from 6.1 billion in 2025 to 7.1 billion in 2027, at an average annual growth rate of 5.5%, purely on administration. However, 86.8% of this budget, amounted to about 17.9 billion, over the medium term is allocated to transfers and subsidies to public entities and municipalities. The National Development Plan, NDP, sets out a vision to eliminate poverty and reduce inequality by 2030. But this budget fails to align with those goals. The Integrated National Electrification Program is allocated 13.2 billion, yet only 300 households will be connected, a pace far too slow and expensive to meet the needs of millions still without electricity. Connection of each house at 45,000 rents, it's too expensive. Meanwhile, 15,000 households per year are given a non-grid solution, mainly solar, like a band-aid for a bullet wound. Majority of these households are in sparsely populated rural areas, mostly in Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, where the energy divide is most acute. The Integrated Resource Plan, IRP of 2019, clearly identifies the critical role of high-efficiency, low-emissions HELE coal technologies in South Africa's energy future. Yet to date, not a single HELE project has been implemented. This lack of action undermines these objectives of the IRP. Minister, retrofit, convert existing coal-powered fire stations to HELE technology now, and stop decommissioning coal power plants. Prioritize their modernization, ensure they operate at world-class HELE efficiency with the lowest possible emissions. Why is the department encouraging the demonization of coal? It is time to dispel the outdated notion that coal is dirty and cannot be clean. South Africa's vast coal resources, combined with HELE advancement, provide an opportunity to deliver affordable, secure power while meeting stringent emission standards. We implore this government to stop closure of perfectly functional coal power plants and invest in their upgrade and building new power stations, ensuring that coal remains a cornerstone of our energy mix, cleaner, more efficient, and aligned with the needs of our people and economy. Furthermore, the Integrated Resource Plan, IRP 2019, proposes a significant expansion in the gas-fired power generation to strengthen energy security. Where is the gas master plan and gas plant retrofit plan, Minister? Don't forget the looming gas cliff crisis. While South Africa suffers under relentless load shedding, this government shamelessly rewards corruption instead of solving the crisis. The BCIPP battery storage tender handed to a former ESCOM executive's risk of conflict of interest and backroom dealings. Minister, why defend the battery deal? Why are you eating letlakori nyana or something nyana lebona? This budget fails. Why are we selling letlakori lebona? This budget fails to meet set out targets in the SDP. It fails to meet the Industrial Policy Action Plan, IPEP, and the New Growth Path, NGP plan. Over 110 billion in profits will be made by this battery tender, by the way. Billions meant to secure our energy sovereignty are being looted, shipped overseas by ESCOM, War Room, people who collapsed ESCOM in the first place. Instead of delivering electricity, the GNU endorses corruption, providing once again that their loyalty lies with their cadres, not citizens. How can we trust this budget when the gravy train beneficiaries are still feeding at the trough? Honorable Speaker, if it was not, and really the House must listen, if it was not for President Zuma and his great visionary leadership, if it was not for President Zuma and his great visionary leadership, when he commissioned the building of the 10,000 megawatts coal plants, Medupi and Kusile, today South Africa will be in a stage 10 load shedding crisis. Let that sink. Let that sink. President Zuma saved this country from load shedding stage 10. Medupi and Kusile today is working. So you should be celebrating. And I am ashamed that the government of the ANC has not a single policy to build one coal power stations. They had failed after Umsolozi, build 2 power stations. So prove us wrong when we say we reject this budget.
Thank you, honorable member. The next speaker is the Honorable Bapti. Order, honorable members. Order. We have a next speaker on the podium.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Minister, Honourable Deputy Minister, members in the House, guests and officials, I greet you today, and I want to start my submission on a positive note. The return to service of the Unit 4 at the Kusile Power Station is a welcomed return. Generated energy is the lifeblood of an economy. Whatever its form, it impacts our lives and our livelihoods in so many ways. But it can be an enabler of economic growth when it is delivered efficiently and effectively, and it can be a social transformer when it is delivered reliably and affordably. It is, however, a necessity in our modern world. And just as the food we eat has an impact on the bodies and how it performs, so the energy we consume will impact how our economy performs, how our environment is affected, and how our livelihoods are sustained. Good choices make for healthy outcomes. The new Department of Electricity and Energy has tabled a budget of 6.669 billion to deliver what could be called a new energy dispensation for South Africa. It must address the priorities set out in the 7th administration, and that is namely to drive inclusive growth and job creation, to reduce poverty and the high cost of living, and to build a capable, ethical, and developmental state. Because these priorities represent a baseline for policy development and program implementation and should guide us to a cleaner and a more environmentally sustainable future that provides opportunities for our younger generation and those caught in a cycle of poverty through unemployment. Real freedom for young people entering the job market for the first time is manifest in their ability to become self-employed or to find work. The unemployment crisis is for all of us in this House something that we have to make a lived reality through economic growth. The government cannot employ everyone, and on its own it cannot grow the economy. But what it can do is make the business of doing business less onerous and more viable for the private sector and those who venture into small business or self-employment. Government can forge relationships with private sector to benefit all. Government can establish and maintain infrastructure that makes economic activity viable, and government can learn from the experiences of countries that achieved economic growth about what worked and what did not work. Last but not least, it can also lead the charge against corruption and graft. It is in this context that I suggest we should view the newly formed department's budget. The Minister has set strategic priorities aligned to the national priorities, and it includes the attainment of sovereign and regional energy security. But there was a rider that this is through defending Eskom's share of generation capacity, driving a catalytic program in green hydrogen, resetting the role of nuclear, and expanding and modernizing the transmission grid. It's the word defend Eskom's share that raises a concern when one considers the changes in the energy market. The Electricity Regulation Amendment Act lays the foundation for a competitive energy market, and it introduces diversity into the value chain. It seeks to achieve greater energy security and affordability. It ends the monopolization of the electricity sector by a single player, and it introduces an open market under a market code. By doing so, it opens the way for independent power producers to compete for grid space and for consumers. It brings in new market actors like energy traders, prosumers, aggregators, and retailers. Competition in the marketplace is what leads to improved efficiencies and puts pressure on prices going down. In a struggling household, the price of electricity can be the difference between putting food on the table and purchasing energy. In a struggling business, it can be the difference between staying in business and closing shop. NERSA's multi-year price determination model allows for pricing that includes cost recovery with reasonable returns. But Eskom's debt levels at over 400 billion implies that bad debt service costs will push prices upward. Competition can only be good for energy pricing. The DA urges the Minister to proceed with the review of the electricity pricing policy with speed, and this to address nurses' challenges in keeping electricity affordable and to encourage greater competition in the electricity sector. The National Transmission Company of South Africa has been unbundled but remains tethered to the Eskom stable. The function of a fully independent systems market operator falls to the transmission company during the 5-year transition phase. The unfortunate part is that Eskom's history has eroded public and market trust. Memories of the dark ages of load shedding, build cost overruns, and lack of maintenance still linger. However, advances in maintenance that ended the dark ages mitigates these fears. Eskom's generation performance is measured by its energy availability factor, which currently targets 65%, and the DA proposes that this target be reviewed upwards. South Africa's just energy transition focuses on phasing out coal-based generation and introducing renewables and clean sources to replace and extend our available energy. Our nationally determined contribution aims to achieve between 350 and 420 megatons of carbon equivalent by 2030 and net zero by 2050. The implication to achieving these targets is that emissions must plateau in the short term and fall in the medium. The transition to cleaner sources relies heavily on renewables, which have declined in cost significantly in comparison to other technologies. The target is to reach 50 gigawatts in wind, solar, and battery by 2030. Achieving energy security whilst protecting jobs and the economic activity is a delicate balance, and it must be maintained in the interest of saving livelihoods. Renewable sources are in areas that are underserved by the national grid, and so the grid expansion is a vital part of our energy future security. Funding to meet this need is secured in the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan, as the Minister indicated, and progress has been made in securing the vehicles to make it possible. The Department has put much faith in the rollout of green hydrogen strategy that will serve both the domestic and the export market. With targets at 10 gigawatts of electricity and 500 kilotons of hydrogen by 2030, there's no doubt project management will come under intense pressure to deliver on time and in budget. Importantly, the job creation opportunities are significant. It raises the important matter of preparing a workforce that can deliver and operate the new systems and the network. It requires a coordinated approach by the departments and the entities that justify the need and provide the skills development to just work it out. The Safari 1 nuclear research reactor has been in operation since 1965. It is the top producer of medical isotopes, an essential training facility for our engineers and scientists, and a valuable research facility. It will be replaced with a multi-purpose reactor due for commissioning between 2031 and 35, when the 2.5 gigawatts of new build is scheduled at a similar time, with conservative estimates at 230 billion. The budget provides 1.3 billion over the medium term for preparatory work. Now, the DA is not opposed to nuclear. We do, however, question whether it is affordable and achievable in the timeframes necessary to ensure energy security and mitigate the impacts of shortfalls. Eskom remains a central player in our energy ecosystem and will continue to influence electricity pricing as a result. The growth in Eskom's debtors book, currently more than 100 billion, arises from defaulting municipalities, and this debt has the potential to reverse the progress we witnessed last year. Treasury has embarked on several initiatives with Eskom to assist errant municipalities to pay current accounts, but not with much success. Much hope is placed on the distribution agency agreement that enables Eskom to provide technical, metering, billing, revenue collection, and procurement services under a service level agreement. The ring-fence revenues cover costs of supply and surpluses are transferred to municipalities. This arrangement does not affect the distribution license, and the model lends itself to the consideration of private utilities to take on electrical services in non-performing municipalities. It would be remiss of me not to mention load reduction and the negative impact it has on both indigent and paying customers. There's an urgent need for dedicated solutions with timeframes to be made
Thank you,
available
Honourable
to
Member.
the affected
Your
residents.
time is now expired.
I thank you.
Honourable Paulson.
Well, thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters, President Julius Malema, officials, commissars, and fighters of the Economic Freedom Fighters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We reject this proposed budget vote. This government has failed to make electricity reliably and cheaply available for all South Africans. There's not a single poor working class family that does not complain about the cost of electricity, Minister. Minister, every household buys electricity. Although electricity supply has stabilized over the past few months, it's now become unaffordable for most of us. Veral die arme werkersklas word benadeel deur die hoë elektrisiteitskoste. Boonop, Minister, die stad Kaapstad het die afgelope 3 jaar die kostes van elektrisiteit bo NERSA se goedgekeurde riglyne verhoog. Dis 'n skreeuende skande. In Suid-Afrika kos dit huishoude tussen R2,500 en R4,000 per maand vir elektrisiteit. Wat nog van vervoerkoste en maandelike kruideniersware. Hoe moet ons mense dit oorleef? Minister, our plea to you is to provide free electricity of 200 units per month to the indigent and poorer household, because 50 units is simply inadequate. And Minister, I hear your members asking, where's the budget? Well, it's possible if we get rid of poor governance, mismanagement, and fraud and corruption at Eskom, which contributes to its lack of financial sustainability and the burden of overpriced electricity on the citizens of this country. A 1998 white paper predicted imminent electricity shortages by 2007 and recommended augmenting generating capacity. But the ANC government, as usual, displayed its policy and planning indecision and its paralysis. It only granted Eskom permission for expansion in 2004. Eskom is currently in its 3rd year of its 254 billion debt relief program, but the department themselves have expressed serious concern that it is not yielding the expected results. Eskom's overall expenditure is projected to increase to 418 billion rand by 2027-2028. Municipal debt to Eskom is approaching 100 billion, with 23 of the 71 municipalities compliant with municipal debt relief program as of March 2024. Minister, I've got an alternative solution for you, and we'll get to that. Eskom's billing system is outdated, and this has made it very vulnerable, contributing to electricity theft and illegal connections. It's one of your biggest and most burning problems right now. Minister, fix these problems at Eskom and authorize it to take over electricity distribution from municipalities that are unable to manage their financial obligations to Eskom, and also from the city of Cape Town that is robbing us, our citizens here in Cape Town. What Eskom needs to do when they take over distribution from those municipalities is to write off the historical electricity debts, because municipalities simply cannot afford to pay those debts. Eskom must recruit more artisans and engineers over the next few years, with 60% being women and youth. If we do this properly, Minister, then we can avoid Eskom's budget deficit of 5.6 billion in the 2025-2026 financial year. EFF's 2024 elections manifesto committed to ensuring the security of electricity supply for at least 20 years, emulating successful models like China to foster national sovereignty and sustainable economic growth. Minister, before we should also not be prioritizing coal exports to European countries that are dictating to South Africa how we should transition to renewables. Lastly, Minister, I want to speak about Jan Oberholzer, who was Eskom Chief's Operations Officer from 2018 to 2023. So South Africa's worst period of load shedding. It cost South Africa 3.2% of its GDP. After leaving Eskom, Oberholzer is appointed chairperson of Mulilo Energy in 2023. The combined value from Mulilo's projects is almost 20 billion rand. Battery energies, Jan Oberholzer, the man employed to fix Eskom, broke it even further, and you're rewarding him with 20 billion rands worth of projects. Minister, you said Eskom would enter renewables. Here's the opportunity. Take this battery energy storage away from Mulilo projects. They are in any case going to go and buy components from BYD. Build the capacity, buy it yourself, operate it yourself, and save us money and save the electricity in this country. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Mshlongo.
Honorable Chairperson, we welcome.
Order, honorable members. No, everyone.
Welcome the
Let's allow Honorable Mshlongo.
We welcome the 6.7 billion rands budget for 2025-26, representing a 9.7% increase from the previous year. Yet we are deeply concerned by the real-term decline in the allocation to the program, Energy 3 programs and project, which oversees critical electrification efforts. The National Electrification Program is essential for expanding electricity access in rural areas. We cannot allow rural communities to be left behind while urban and industrial areas advanced. We need increased investment in rural energy infrastructure, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal and other historical under-electrified regions, to help close the gap in energy access. We support the department's priority of the just energy transition, and we are encouraged by plans to scale up renewable energy
Honorable
and support.
Mshlongo, my apologies. Just hold on. Honorable Paulson, why do you want to be recognized? No, Honorable Paulson, let's get order. Honorable Mshlongo, my apologies. Please proceed.
We support the department's priority of the just energy transition, and we are encouraged by plans to scale up renewable energy and support socio-economic adaptation for coal-reliant communities. We demand a transition that is just in both process and outcome, meaning inclusive of rural workers, youth, and women-led enterprises. Communities must not be consulted as an afterthought. They must be empowered as participants in shaping energy futures. While nuclear can play a role in the energy mix, we urge cautious, transparent, and fiscal responsible investment. The budget allocation to Program 4, Nuclear Energy Regulation and Management, must deliver value for money and ensure the safe, efficient, and non-politicized government of our nuclear asset. We note the limited budget for the Program 5 state-owned companies support services, given the centrality of Eskom, NESA, and NALEDI, and other to our energy system. These programs must be adequately capacitated to drive governance, reform, and performance monitoring. While Eskom's budget sits outside the budget of the department's vote, its recovery remains central to any national energy strategy. We are pleased that Eskom intends to increase energy availability. However, we call for a clear timeline to unbundling processes, community benefit sharing in new projects, and decisive action against corruption, maladministration, and the escalation of municipal debt. The IFP welcomes the department's role in leading the G20's energy transition platform under South Africa's presidency. This is a crucial opportunity to leverage global partnership and position South Africa as a regional clean energy leader. However, global recognition must be earned by delivering real domestic improvement first, ensuring lights stay on in homes, clinics, and schools. In conclusion, the IFP supports Budget Vote 10. The road to energy security is long, but it is a journey we must take, guided by the practical needs of our people. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Hendricks.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable members of the House, my fellow patriotic South Africans, I rise on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance to engage with Budget Vote 10 on electricity and energy, a budget that speaks to not only the kilowatts and infrastructure, but to the constitutional obligation of the House to oversee the responsible use of the public resource in service of all South Africans. We acknowledge the department's state commitment to contribute to the medium-term strategic framework and its role in driving inclusive growth and job creation. However, commitments must translate into tangible outcomes. This requires more than policy pronouncement. It demands execution, accountability, and measurable impact, particularly for those who remain undeserved by our energy system. We know the department's allocation of 6.7 billion for the 25-27 financial year distributed across 5 programs. While this reflects an intent to address critical energy challenges, history has shown that budgets alone do not guarantee delivery. We call on the Minister to institute strict control measures to ensure that every rand is spent efficiently, transparently, and free from corruption. Parliament's oversight role must be exercised rigorously to prevent misallocation of resources that has in the past undermined public trust. The budget outlines support for state-owned companies, including oversight, governance, and performance monitoring. While these entities play a pivotal role, we caution against a dynamic where they dictate terms to the state, often at the expense of the poor and vulnerable. Eskom, as the primary energy supplier, has repeatedly failed the people of South Africa. Its operational and financial instability has left millions in the dark, stilting economic growth and eroding public confidence. We therefore urge the Minister to diversify energy generation sources by actively incorporating independent power producers, IPPs, municipal energy projects, and alternative renewal solutions. Reliance on a single faltering entity is no longer tangible. A sustainable energy future requires a competitive multiple supply framework that prioritizes resilience and equity. Honorable Chairperson, energy policies must be a vehicle for justice. The persistence of an energy poverty in informal settlements, rural communities, and historically marginalized areas is indefensible. Electrification programs must prioritize these communities in ensuring that access to reliable electricity is not a privilege, but an universal right. We welcome the recent respite from load shedding, but this cannot be a fleeting victory. It must mark the beginning of a systematic overhaul, one that includes proactive grid maintenance to prevent crises before they occur, accelerate completion of Khulisa, Komati, and other critical projects with the same urgency applied to Medupi Unit 4. Community-centric renewable energy models such as microgrids and solar cooperatives that empower rather than excludes. To rebuild trust, we demand full disclosure of contracts and tenders with independent auditors to ensure value for public money, a real-time public dashboard tracking energy projects, expenditure, and grid performance, because transparency should be as reliable as the electricity we promise. Strong anti-corruption measures, including vetting of personnel and decisive action against sabotage and theft. In conclusion, Minister, honorable members, this budget vote is not merely a fiscal instrument.
Thank you, honorable member.
We support.
Honorable Wessels.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. House Chair, it is astounding that the Honorable Ntshibileng very accurately outlined the devastating effect that load shedding had on the livelihoods of our people out there and on the economy. But then he mentions the fact, or his fact, that if it was not for President Jacob Zuma, we would have had stage 10 load shedding. We should not distort historic facts. The facts are that President Jacob Zuma was neither the president during the commissioning of Medupi and Kuusile, unless he did it from trial court where he was at that stage, because it occurred in 2007, honorable member. And it would have been done and completed by 2014 during his term, but it was not. And the prices were inflated by 300 billion rand during that time, during his watch and where he was the president. Eskom and the corruption at Eskom and the complete decay occurred during that time. The state capture took place.
Honorable Wessels.
Toll.
Honorable Wessels, just take your seat for a moment. I had first the member just behind you, Honorable Ntshibileng. Yes, Honorable Member, why do you want to be recognized?
Does a member want to take a question as to
Honorable Wessels, will you take a question?
whether he knows Pinocchio?
No, Honorable Member. Honorable Ntshibileng, did you have a different point?
The member is saying 300 billion. Can you quantify what?
No. We're not.
Still a cost.
Honorable Ntshibileng, please be orderly. You had your opportunity to debate. You can raise points of order now, but you cannot re-debate now or have a right of reply during the speech of another member. Honorable Wessels, please continue.
Thank you, House Chairperson. We must stick to the correct facts. Fact as well is, Honorable Chairperson, that South Africa remains an energy deficient country. Although strides have been made, there's still not enough electricity. And that remains a reality. But then we should not be proponents of coal and think that that is the only solution. At the end of the day, we need more electricity. And then I agree with the Honorable Paulson that we need affordable electricity. And then, Honorable Minister, through you, Chairperson, we should rationally debate if it is not time to demonopolize the sector and allow more energy and electricity producers, because that might, with a correct and responsible regulatory framework, be the solution to the affordability of electricity. The other problem is that, similar to water, a lot of our electricity losses occur on municipal level because of maintenance not being done and because of bad governance and management. That must be addressed. But we also lose a lot of electricity due to theft. And then we should relook the Electricity Regulatory Act, which, when it was introduced years ago, it decriminalized the theft of electricity. It's not a statutory crime anymore. That was removed from the Act. Now it's a common law crime, but we have a lot of conflicting court judgments in that regard, where the court says you can't steal something like electricity because it's not tangible. We need certainty, and it can be introduced in the Act. And Minister, we plead that you bring an amendment. We lose a lot of electricity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Trollip.
House Chairperson, South Africa's future depends on getting electricity right, and I think the Minister set it out very eloquently what's required in that regard. Without a stable, affordable, accessible energy supply, our economy cannot grow. Jobs will continue to be lost and dignity will remain out of reach for millions. We recognize the small improvement in Eskom's energy availability factor from 54.6% to 60%. That's about as much energy that's available in this room. You yourself set a target of 70%. It's still way off that target. And the committee has set a target of 80%. So we need to understand that there's a long, long way to go. We note the improvement. But I also want to say that we have noted the impact of corruption and Chancellor House corruption under Jacob Zuma in the energy bills of Medupi and Kusile. And let me tell you that nuclear power is a very good option.
Honourable member, could you grab a seat? We have a point of order. Thank you. Point of order. Okay. Please continue. Could I ask the House to please give the speaker opportunity to be heard?
Thank you. I was hoping he'd ask a question, but he doesn't have the gumption to do that.
Please continue.
Let me tell you something, that nuclear is a solution, but nuclear in the hands of corrupt, incompetent people is catastrophic. If we had had corruption-free energy build over the last 13 years in this country, we wouldn't have load shedding and our economy would be growing. We support the committee's recommendation to accelerate the finalization of IRP, IEP, and GMP, critical planning tools to shape our energy future. South Africa cannot attract serious investment without certainty and transparency in its energy planning. We also commend and emphasize on the public participation part, especially in the rollout of microgrid solutions and the just energy transition. These initiatives empower communities, expand access to power for indigent households, and unlock inclusive growth. We further support the call to prioritize the appointment of a permanent Director General and key leadership positions in NERSA and the National Nuclear Regulator. Without competent leadership, even the best plans will fail. Crucially, we welcome the committee's recommendation to review pricing formulas, a long overdue intervention. We note that Eskom has reported first quarter profits. We hope that you'll take that into account when you're pricing electricity. As for the gas cliff that everyone has spoken about, this too demands urgent and coordinated action. While imports might provide short-term relief for the impending and rapid shortfall in natural gas supply in South Africa, we support the committee's call for a cost-benefit analysis that prioritizes indigenous production where feasible and affordable. Minister, I drove around Cape Town for 3 days looking for gas. There's no gas, and poor people rely almost solely on gas and paraffin, especially in cold winters. We need this department to focus their attention on fast-tracking liquid natural gas import infrastructure at Richards Bay and Kucha as a short-term relief program. We need to see you accelerate development of the Brilpada and Leipad discoveries to create sovereign, sustainable gas future for our country. And this will require formalized coordination between your department and that of Minister Mantashe. I want to warn you, you're going to have to avoid gatekeeping. But Minister, you must also know for a fact that is Congo, Zako, Zamanka, Umbani, Korokor. 25% is broken at any one time. That is completely unsustainable with energy generation. In conclusion, Action SA will consider supporting this vote because it aligns with our commitment to constructive opposition and holding government accountable while supporting the reforms that serve the people of South Africa. However, if the GNU cannot pass this budget, don't expect the opposition to pass it for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker will be the Honourable Deputy Minister of Electricity and Energy. Thank you.
Honourable Chairperson, Minister of Electricity and Energy, Honourable Members, fellow South Africans, It is both a privilege and a responsibility to debate on the electricity and energy budget today of all days, Global Energy Independence Day. In doing so, we affirm a principle that transcends line items and spreadsheets, that every rand spent by this government must deliver value, drive transformation, and forge a measurable difference in people's lives. We are building more than megawatts. We are building a future. And that future must be visible in every rural classroom lit by clean energy, in every township enterprise powered by industrial opportunity, and in every young woman who no longer wonders if she belongs in the energy sector, because she already does. Chairperson, this year we secured a long-awaited and significant breakthrough when Cabinet approved the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan, SARIM. This is not just an energy roadmap. It is our renewable energy industrialization master plan. SARIM lays the foundation for a renewable economy, one where we don't just consume green technologies, we manufacture them. It maps out localization opportunities across the value chain, such as solar PV, batteries, inverters, and other critical components that should be made in South Africa by South Africans. It links procurement to economic justice and ensures that manufacturing, servicing, and innovation become sources of decent jobs and industrial growth. And through Power Up, our national platform for sector-wide skills development and transformation, we are equipping women, youth, and persons with disabilities to enter these value chains, not as spectators, but as participants. SARIM is not the end of the transition. It's the engine that will power it forward, inclusively and on an industrial scale. Our green hydrogen program is no longer aspirational. It is moving, and it is doing so with clarity, purpose, and scale. Backed by the green hydrogen commercialization strategy, we are unlocking catalytic investment through 3 impact hydrogen development corridors in the Northern Cape, the Eastern Cape, as well as Gauteng and the Free State. These corridors will link production zones to water access, port logistics, transmission capacity, and export infrastructure. Work is underway to establish a hydrogen special economic zone, aligning industrial policy and spatial planning to attract global partners and unlock green value chains. This program is also shaping a new continental energy diplomacy agenda. Through the G20 Energy Transition Working Group, South Africa is leading the development of the first ever roadmap for sustainable industrialization hubs in Africa. Developed in close consultation with G20 members and global partners, this roadmap is designed to align national and regional energy, industry, and infrastructure planning, while catalyzing cross-border trade corridors, regional power pools, and shared infrastructure development. But our greatest opportunity is not only in exports, it is in jobs. That is why we are investing in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics at education, and integrating it into skills academies, bursary schemes, and enterprise support programs tied to the green energy value chain. Through Power Up and the Energy and Water SETA, we are supporting women and young people to become welders, technicians, plant operators, and entrepreneurs of this new frontier. We are also laying the groundwork for green hydrogen pipeline infrastructure, both physical and regulatory, to move us from pilot projects to export scale production. Chairperson, South Africa is already a global leader in one of the most critical and life-saving fields of nuclear science, medical isotopes. Through our NTP radioisotopes division at NEXA, we are among the world's top producers of isotopes for cancer diagnostics and treatment, reaching patients in over 60 countries every day. To consolidate and expand this capability, government is prioritizing the construction of a new multi-purpose reactor. The MPR will ensure continuity of supply, enable cutting-edge research, support industrial and agricultural applications, and boost our position in global nuclear medicine markets. This is not just a scientific project. It's an opportunity to drive transformation. NEXA is working to ensure that the MPR program is a platform for skills development, STEM career pathways, and inclusive enterprise participation, especially for women and youth. We're also pleased to announce a significant milestone for the National Radioactive Waste Disposal Institute with the recent appointment of a new CEO, bringing strong leadership to a technically complex and nationally strategic mandate. INRADI is responsible for the long-term management and safe disposal of radioactive waste. This year, it will assume operational responsibility of the Falpits Waste Facility, already recognized internationally as a benchmark of excellence. Looking ahead, INRADI is progressing with plans to establish a central interim storage facility for used nuclear fuel. Designed to centralize and secure high-level waste, the CISF will be built with 80% local contact, create over 100 permanent jobs, and incorporate a strong gender and youth mainstreaming agenda. This demonstrates once again that even the most complex energy sectors can and must be inclusive. Honourable members, no nuclear program can exist without a regulator that is respected, independent, and scientifically rigorous. That role is fulfilled by the National Nuclear Regulator, which has once again achieved over 98% of performance targets. The NNR has approved the long-term operation of Kubrick Unit 1, with Unit 2 currently under regulatory review. It has conducted full-scale safety exercises and significantly expanded radon monitoring in at-risk areas. Importantly, the NNR Amendment Act, which came into effect on 4 June 2025, enhances the NNR's enforcement powers, modernizes its regulatory toolkit, and provides clear licensing pathways for emerging technologies such as small modular reactors. The NNR continues to invest in civic education, ensuring that nuclear safety is not hidden behind acronyms or misinformation. Chair, if generation is the engine of the energy system, transmission is the circulatory system, and for too long, it has been under tremendous strain. We are now fixing that with action, not aspiration. The Electricity Regulation Amendment Act has brought key provisions into effect, enabling open access to the grid, multi-market structures, and competitive electricity trading. On 1 April 2025, the National Transmission Company of South Africa came into full legal operation. NTCSA is now the licensed transmission entity operating independently from Eskom and unlocking a transparent, rules-based grid environment. To scale up new infrastructure, the department has launched the Independent Transmission Projects Procurement Program, as mentioned by the Minister. This program will target grid build-out in high congestion corridors, crowd in private capital, and ensure that transmission infrastructure keeps pace with our generation ambitions. As always, localization, transformation, and transparency will be non-negotiable pillars of procurement. This brings me to SANEDI, the quiet powerhouse driving our clean energy breakthroughs. The South African National Energy Development Institute continues to play a pivotal role in applied energy innovation and policy support, and its work touches nearly every part of our future energy system. From smart meters and digital grid pilots to electric vehicles and clean mobility, their focus isn't research for research's sake. It's innovation with intent. They're helping shape our integrated resource plan and gas master plan, advancing clean fuels and carbon capture technologies, supporting the beneficiation of critical minerals for local manufacturing, and playing a key role in executing South Africa's hydrogen society roadmap. It's not flashy work, but it's the foundation for everything that comes next. One of SANEDI's current focus areas is the rollout of energy performance certificates, which will become mandatory by 7 December 2025 for public buildings over 1,000 square meters and private non-residential buildings over 2,000 square meters. SANEDI is supporting municipalities and building owners to prepare while also enabling a growing market in energy efficient services and audits. Chairperson, access remains the unfinished business of energy justice. For that reason, South Africa is a signatory to the World Bank and African Development Bank's Mission 300, which aims to provide energy access to 300 million Africans by 2030. And we're not just participating, we're leading by example. Universal access is not a slogan. It is a commitment, one that reaches the school child, the clinic, the farmer, and the household worker. We're not just building an energy system. We are building a future that is industrial, inclusive, innovative, and proudly South African. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. The next speaker is from the ACDP, Honorable Thring.
Honorable House Chairperson, there is no doubt that our economy and citizens have been made to bear the cost of Eskom's poor energy governance. The ACDP posits that this department's budget of some 6.7 billion must be scrutinized not only for its allocations, but also for its moral and operational accountability. The Auditor General's qualified audit outcome revealed a deterioration in distribution, finance, and governance. While revenue grew by some 14%, this was driven by an 18% tariff hike, not efficiency. The AG lamented that had Eskom implemented its recommendations over the last 5 years, there would be no need for excessive tariff increases. As a result, the ACDP has called for quarterly financial reports to the Portfolio Committee to ensure the application of fiduciary responsibilities. We will continue as the ACDP to exercise our mandate to hold the executive and this department to account. The approved 12.7% increase for 25-26 year punishes the poor, making electricity unaffordable for millions, while alleged criminal conduct and wasteful expenditure remain unchecked. Those who looted Eskom should be held accountable, not innocent South Africans. The ACDP welcomes the 2024 court ruling halting tariff hikes in over 100 municipalities due to the absence of cost of supply studies. In the same breath, municipalities must square up to settle the amounting debt of nearly 100 billion rand. We caution against the blindly decommissioning of coal power stations to appease global elites, the closure of Komati Power Station, an unjust transition from coal affected thousands of lives and has put a strain on social services with increased poverty and crime in the area. It is a clear lesson on how not to transition from coal. As kingdom builders, the ACDP asserts that we must be good stewards of our environment, but we caution against the political weaponization of our climate, where anthropogenic global warming is used as a pretext for centralized control, economic destabilization, and ideological conformity. Where Africa emits just 4% of global carbon, our best coal has been exported to Europe, up from 720% in 2022. With South Africa having 200 years worth of coal beneath our soil, we must utilize clean coal base load technologies, leveraging our competitive advantage to ensure our energy stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Is the speaker from the UDM here? No. Next will be Bossa, Honourable Slazo Webster. Thank you.
Chairperson, the majority in South Africa bore the brunt of energy exclusion during apartheid, and then again in the democratic dispensation because of the load shedding crisis that we had. So in a country where this is our historical context, the work of the Department of Electricity and Energy has to be about delivering power to every home, to every school, to every clinic. But we also have to make sure that that delivery means real ownership, that it means real benefit, and that it means real inclusion. This budget vote boasts of just energy transition, of green hydrogen, of new grids, yet nowhere in these plans do we see explicit support for township energy cooperatives or community-owned renewable projects. The department speaks of 1.7 billion in municipal grants and 2.3 billion to Eskom, but where's the guarantee that these billions will build local capacity, local ownership, and local jobs? A just transition cannot mean a transition only for those who are well capitalized. It must transform ownership patterns in energy economy. It must give townships and rural communities the ability to generate, sell, and store their own power. Without that, we're really just replacing coal barons with green barons and not taking into consideration the economic impact of this transition. We must also talk honestly about the diesel-powered load shedding mitigation. Eskom's budget is projected at over 384 billion, with over 6.7 billion set aside for diesel mitigation this year, and that shows a 9.7 increase. Yet the true cost of diesel procurement is nowhere transparently disclosed in this vote. These costs, as we've seen before, are hidden in contingency reserves and swallowed in bulk allocations. But the greatest hidden cost of the crisis is paid by the public through tariffs. And as Build One South Africa, we fought these increases in courts, and we are challenging them in the Western Cape too. In real terms, people who once spent 200 Rand on electricity simply do not get what they used to, but instead much less. And tariff hikes are the downstream effect, we have to be honest, of corruption, mismanagement, and financial collapse at Eskom. And these are now being passed down to households. We cannot wave through billions for energy programs without, one, demanding real transformation. We cannot applaud talk of a just transition without, two, taking into consideration that communities are left out of ownership. And thirdly, we cannot accept a budget that hides the true cost of failure behind vague line items and rising household bills. And so as Build One South Africa, we support this budget vote, but we want to say that every rand must serve its purpose in delivering real progress. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Is the speaker from ATM here? No. Our next speaker will be from the ANC, Honourable Nkosi. Thank you.
Honorable House Chair, honorable members, distinguished guests in the House, fellow South Africans. With a heavy heart, I would like to also extend my sincere condolences to Mabuza's family, with also the Republic of South Africa on the passing of Deputy President, Honorable David Tabete Mabuza. Ulale upumule, Babu Mabuza. You have worked very hard for the people of South Africa, in particular, the people of Mpumalanga. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chair, electricity and energy, like water and transport, are the key drivers of economic growth and job creation. Over the recent years, there have been many challenges facing electricity and energy sector, which negatively affected inclusive economic growth and job creation. Therefore, the importance of Ministry and Department of Electricity and Energy operating independently of the Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources, this will also enable focus on the electricity and energy sectors. This budget vote and its programs are critical to ensuring security of supply of electricity and energy. South Africa has a large electricity demand by African standards, and the energy is very intensive. The peak of electricity demand in the country is 35,665 megawatts, with the countries having an installed capacity of 48,521 megawatts and supply capacity of 32,246 megawatts. In the past, 90% of electricity has been generated from coal-fired power plants, and this has been reduced to 80% given the shift to green renewable energy. This large electricity demand cannot be met through a single energy carrier, even though the bulk of the country demand is met through coal. The country also generates smaller volumes of electricity from hydroelectric and nuclear, and more recently through independent power producers generating power through renewable energy. Eskom, created as a natural monopoly, supplies the base of load of electricity demand, and it will continue doing so for a long time. However, the recent past, the country was afflicted by load shedding caused through corruption, malfeasance, and incompetence of the new build in a form of Medupi and Gusile, as well as lack of maintenance of the coal plants, which saw a decline in the energy availability factor to an all-time low of 48%. In 2023, the country reached its peak for the number of days with load shedding in South Africa, which was 332 days. This was a record for the country and significantly higher than the 205 days experienced in 2022. But the ANC government at a time introduced a program to reverse the effects of load shedding. Eskom itself introduced a plan to enhance maintenance of the power plants and fix the defects in the new build program, which was financed from its own revenue to the value of 20 billion rand per annum. The government plan for fixing Eskom and the maintenance plan of power stations and fixing the defects of Medupi and Gusile, as well as refurbishing Kubek, has started to bear fruits, with the energy availability factor increasing to 68%. This means that generation capacity has increased, and this has also been greatly assisted with the development of the green energy sector, as the independent power producers supply 6,000 megawatts into the transition grid. This has resulted in the country having suspended load shedding for more than 9 months, with reduced diesel usage in the peaking plants. And this highlights the importance of this budget vote and the implementation of the programs of the department and its entities. It's important that the department continues with integrated national electrification program. Honorable Chair, this program has been a success story since 1994, and it sought to provide especially African households with electricity supply to correct the historical injustice of the past. In this financial year, 96% of the households will be electrified, with the remainder requiring off-grid solutions due to the fact that the grid is inactive in those areas for transmission. As the ANC, we are committed or continue committed on calling to increase the transmission of infrastructure to ensure this generation power goes to the most vulnerable of our society. The expansion of the generation capacity by Eskom and IPP renewable energy requires the restructuring and development of both transmission and distribution infrastructure. This will facilitate IPP generated power to be brought to market. The finalization of the Integrated Resource Plan 2025 is paramount undertaking. This plan will provide a clear roadmap.
Thank you, Honourable
for
Member.
electricity generation.
Your time has expired.
Honourable Chair, we support this budget.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Is the speaker from Al Jamal in the House? Speaker from NCC? UAT? Next speaker will be the DA, Honourable Lorimer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Time. Time is the enemy that keeps defeating the people who are responsible for electricity in our country. The South African electricity crisis has felt lessened by the suspension of load shedding this winter. Medupi Unit 4 has returned to service following an explosion 4 years ago, costing the grid 800 megawatts. Apart from a brief period before the hydrogen explosion, which took that unit offline, Medupi was not fully operational until now. That's a 10-year time delay after it was originally supposed to be complete. This glacial pace of advancement can also be seen in the unbundling of Eskom into 3 entities: generation, transmission, and distribution. It's a step in the right direction, but we may as well be watching a chameleon walking. These problems don't get solved unless there is somebody to actively take hold of them and push them along. This unfortunate inability to move decisively threatens dire consequences when it comes to the gas cliff. We know that Sasol's Pande and Temane gas fields are depleting, and they're going to cut supplies to industrial customers in 2028. According to the Industrial Gas Users Association in Southern Africa, a gas supply cliff would put 60,000 direct jobs at risk, as many industries that are dependent on gas could face an operational shutdown. This gas cliff poses a risk to South Africa's energy future. To address this, we need action, and we need it quickly. Domestic gas production doesn't seem very close. The 11B, 12B project off Mossel Bay lacks money and a partner with the necessary expertise, and it still would run out of time. The amounts of gas found in Mpumalanga Bay and Keletico seem too small to be a solution. And if anybody was allowed to start fracking the Karoo tomorrow, assuming they found the gas, extractable gas that is supposed to be there, it could take another 7 years to commercialization. So the only possible solution is imported gas into terminals, which we don't have, and pipelines, which we haven't built. Minister, I've been watching this portfolio for around 12 years, and I think in every one of those years, we've been promised a gas master plan. Kind of be a little bit skeptical. You also say you fast-tracked import infrastructure. We've only got 3 years to get this built, so it better be a very, very fast track. If we don't build that in time, it's going to be clear where the blame for this particular economic meltdown belongs. We need leadership to get this moving. Perhaps that leadership should be coming from mineral and petroleum resources, but it isn't. Somebody needs to step up, or time will win again.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker will be from the ANC, Honourable Hassan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The ANC rises in support of the budget vote for electricity and energy. We do not treat energy as a commodity for the few. It is a public good, a lever for economic transformation, a developmental tool, and a constitutional imperative. The reality is that South Africa's energy sector is capital intensive, high volume, and low margin, meaning it requires detailed and long-term planning and sustained investment to balance supply and demand while expanding generation, transmission, and distribution capacity. The establishment of a dedicated ministry and department was not a symbolic change. It is about a strategic focus for the state capacity to resolve the energy crisis and center South Africa's inclusive economic growth and just transition. Chairperson, let us not be misled. Load shedding has dwindled because of the deliberate and disciplined implementation of the 9-point plan, Eskom's 6-point maintenance drive, and a government that is focused on fixing, not finger-pointing. In fact, we are burning less diesel right now than we were in the previous financial year, and even less than the year before that. So this is not theory. This is actual real work of rebuilding capacity after state capture, after neglect, and after sabotage. If the shoe fits, say, the budget backs this recovery with concrete investment and reform. It prioritized the 13.2 billion rand over the MTEF for the Integrated National Electrification Program, which is the backbone of grid expansion and universal access. Eskom's recovery and its restructuring, including the early return of over 800 megawatts to the grid through Medupi Unit 4, ahead of schedule, Minister, well done. Scaling up renewables, embedded generation and energy storage through policy reform and targeted investment, as well as the implementation of the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act, which enables regulated private participation in generation and transmission, but also creates a competitive and regulated market, protected from predatory pricing and not neoliberal deregulation. It is a managed reform in the public interest led by a developmental state that is wishing to sweat its existing asset base and expand its supply. This is what an ANC-led government is doing, not playing politics with the crisis, but solving it. Under Minister Ramokgopa's leadership, we are seeing those green shoots of progress. We are seeing with planned maintenance over 6,000 megawatts that are currently under maintenance. The Energy Action Plan is moving with urgency. The energy availability factor has improved from 48% to 60%. And to those members whose mathematics needs to be checked, that number went up. The budget supports a war room approach, not only to bring an end to load shedding, but to ensure the long-term energy sovereignty of our country. Chairperson, electricity prices have surged by 800%, and now, even since 2014, by 190%, and that fast outpaces inflation. And that puts working class and poor households into energy poverty. It is unsustainable. The ANC is calling for an urgent and systemic reform and a full review into the tariff setting model, including the CAPM formula, which inflates costs without benchmarking for the public interest. A revision of the 50 kilowatt free basic electricity subsidy, which no longer meets the real household needs. A full utilization of the 10 billion rand indigent grant, where only 2 billion is currently being used. And a serious intervention for municipal surcharges that double bill the working class. And a pricing system that does not only reflect cost recovery, but social justice. Electricity is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And the ANC will not allow it to become a debt trap for the poor. Chairperson, as the ANC, we also refuse to manage energy poverty. We are here to end it. For too long, energy has been controlled by monopolies, priced for the elite and withheld from the poor. The energy transition cannot be another chapter of exclusion where corporations benefit and the majority sit in the dark. And this is why we as the ANC are not just talking energy democracy, we are building it. We are rolling out community-owned renewable projects where working class people are the co-owners, not the spectators. We are driving public benefit IPPs that put people first before profit. We are deploying microgrids in rural communities, ensuring that no village, no farm, no informal settlement is left behind. Honorable Nshabeleng, this deals with exactly what you were saying. And this is also about launching a bold redistribution of energy wealth with a focus on townships, rural areas, and informal settlements where energy poverty is a daily injustice. The Integrated National Electrification Program is allocated 4.3 billion in this budget. It is the lion's share, and it is to expand access, restore dignity, and liberate our communities. The ANC is not on the sidelines. We are on the ground. We are electrifying schools. We are lighting up homes, and we are fighting for just energy transition that serves the many and not the few. This is what energy democracy is, and the ANC is delivering it in real time. Chairperson, we must never forget that under Jacob Zuma and some in this very room, South Africa was pushed to the edge. Eskom was looted, Transnet gutted, SOEs hollowed out, not by mistake, but by design. Maintenance was stopped, engineers were purged, corruption thrived while the lights went out. And to highlight this, the boiler at Madupi Power Station was 14 meters short, and you paid for it as MKP. How could anything work?
Members, please allow the member to make a speech. Thank you.
Zuma did not inherit a crisis, he created it. He didn't fix Eskom, he fed on it. And now, MKP and the very man who drove us into this darkness dares to pretend to be our savior.
Honourable member, just hold on for a second. Could you please take your seat? I'd like to recognize.
Chairperson, on a point of order, we appreciate you raising this issue that the speaker who is making brilliant points cannot be heard. And could you organize a workshop to explain the difference between running commentary and actually drowning out and doing an interjection?
It's not a point of order. Could I ask all the members of parliament to please acknowledge and maintain decorum in the house? Even everybody has had opportunity to speak. So I'll please ask you, do not drown out the speaker. You're allowed to interject, you're allowed to make comments, but you're not allowed to drown out the speaker. Come on, I'm asking you one last time. Okay, everybody on both sides, please, thank you. I have a point of order from MK, please, what's your order?
Chairperson, I want to ask the speaker if she's prepared to take a question about the rate.
Speaker, are you, you want to take a question?
Don't worry, I'm going to answer all of Honorable Molefe's questions through my next part, so no thank you.
Okay, she will not take a question. Please continue and please give her opportunity to speak and be heard. Thank you.
Let's be clear. Load shedding is Zuma's legacy. The MKP is not a party, it is a political crime scene. And South Africans know who lit the match that set Eskom on fire. I'm going to say that again. South Africans know who lit the match that set Eskom on fire. And we will not let the arsonist return as the firefighter. Never again, and not in our name. The people of South Africa remember, and frankly, the people deserve better than camouflage cosplay. Chairperson, this is not a budget of convenience. It is a budget of conviction. It does not serve the markets, it serves the majority. It does not speak the language of privatization or profiteering, it speaks the language of justice, dignity, and development. It is a budget that electrifies the homes of the poor and the working class. It fuels industrialization through grass, green hydrogen, and nuclear energy. It puts regulation before exploitation and places the needs of the people before the greed of the few. To the people of South Africa, we as the ANC will not allow your homes, your clinics, your classrooms, or your businesses to sit in the dark. We will not surrender our energy future to privatizers, to populists or profiteers. We will build an energy system that is publicly led, that is justly priced and democratically governed. The ANC supports this budget because it does what others can only promise. It delivers power, real power to the people. The future is bright and it is ours. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The final speaker in the debate today will be the Honourable Minister of Electricity and Energy. Thank you very much. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, members. Order. Thank you, members. Order. Honourable Minister, you may proceed.
Chair, let me start by first acknowledging the contribution by members, but just to make the following observations. I do accept that your entry into this discussion is informed by two things. The first one is to accept that this is an arena for public discourse, and therefore you are informed by an aspiration for political entrepreneurship. And by that, I mean that you use this platform for political currency accumulation. And a great display of that is Honorable Crown Prince in Chabeling. I've come to accept that your relationship with the facts is that of antagonism. And let me illustrate what I mean by that. I mean the following. You make a claim here before the House and the country that former President Zuma was responsible for the construction of Medupi and Kusile. Just the facts to the House and the rest of the country is that construction of Medupi started in 2007, and the planning would have started 5 years before. The construction of Kusile started in 2008, and the planning would have started before. So that predates the ascendancy of President Zuma. And also the projections was that they were meant to finish Medupi by 2015. We exceeded that by about 6 years. We finished it by 2021. We had planned to finish Kusile by 2016. We finished that by 2025. Why is that important? It is important because it coincides exactly with that presidency, and you choose to ignore those facts. What do we know again? We know the following, that when we started construction, the plan was that we were going to spend 76 billion rand on Medupi. We spent 145 billion rand. We had planned to spend 84 billion rand on Kusile. We spent 161 billion rand. And that exceeding of the budget coincided with that period of that president. So I'm just saying that it's important that we get to ventilate the truth. And then outside the political entrepreneurship is the substantive questions. What about the substantive questions? So there's a great degree of convergence. So what is that convergence? So all of us are accepting that we don't talk of decommissioning of power stations. We are talking about shutdown, and that gives us the opportunity to repurpose. That gives us the opportunity to retrofit. And then secondly is that we talk of the exploitations of our endowments, and coal is one of those. I keep on making the point. We don't have a coal problem. We have an emissions problem. And technology does exist for us to reduce the SOxes and NOxes, and also to address the carbon emissions. And in that way, we are able to exploit that. The second part is that we are all in agreement. Honorable Bapti, you are absolutely correct. In our pursuit of nuclear, the resetting of the nuclear program, we make the point that it must be done at the pace and scale that we can afford. And by definition, We are very conscious about the upfront capital cost. We accept that the levelized cost of nuclear is lower, but we need to attend to the upfront capital cost. I agree with Honorable Mhlongo that in our interventions, we must empower rural communities. And that's why we make the point that we are going to use microgrids. We don't have to build expensive backbone infrastructure. In that way, we are going to democratize access, make sure that we use technologies, the hybrid of solar PV and battery to be able to power these communities. And in the quest of doing that, we are going to ensure that we industrialize. So the state is the biggest off-taker. On the back of those off-take, we must be able to expand the flow of industrial capacity, increase capacity utilizations of existing firms, get young people or many people into jobs, upskill them. And in that way, on the back of this transition, we are able to grow the economy of our country. I accept the criticism that there's a need for transparency in relation to public procurement of new generation. Mulilo was a perfect example. We are the ones who initiated the conversations at the portfolio committee. Everything will be transparent because ultimately it's the consumer that pays for this price. I want to conclude by reaffirming the point I made earlier on. Electricity is expensive for everyone. The poor are disproportionately affected. And that's why we're starting the process of reviewing the electricity pricing policy to ensure that we reduce the burden on the poor and industry, and we're able to repower our country. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. And thank you to all those who participated in the debate. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise. Thank you.